But I want to talk to you guys tonight, and I will try to be brief, although I am a lawyer and we do like to talk, about these 4 things. What is human trafficking? Is sex trafficking happening here in the Lehigh Valley? Why should you care that it's happening in your community? And what can you do about it? And I want to tell you a story about why I care and why I changed my entire career trajectory because of Jamie Lynn. I had been a prosecutor for, I don't know, 6, 8 years, prosecuting major trials, violent crime in the city of Philadelphia. And I did it day in and day out for a very long time. And I loved my job. I'd actually been in practice for 6 years and decided I really want to be a prosecutor. It's another way for me to take my legal career to the next steps, to get closure in a different way for victims of crime through the criminal justice system. Every day I got up and I went to the courthouse and I wore the white hat and I did the right thing. And I can tell you all with absolute certainty that I don't think I ever convicted a person who wasn't guilty. The cases that I thought something was not right, I dug into. I withdrew cases that I thought were erroneously charged. And I wore that white hat every day, and I did it with pride. And about 8 years into my career, I thought, you know what, I've had a lot of shootings in my life that I've prosecuted, carjackings and home invasions. It's Philly. I need a break. And we had a new elected DA, and I thought, okay, I'll go to the pretrial division. He had campaigned on getting rid of 80% of the cases that were charged before they ever hit the courtroom. It's very different from the DA's office that I grew up in. We tried a lot of cases. And I thought, this is going to be cool. I'll go to pretrial, we'll create new policies, we'll create protocols, and we'll start diverting cases, whether it's through DUI treatment court and changing certain things, making more people eligible, through intermediate punishment, and people who were accused of dealing drugs. And throughout this process, 28 files landed on my desk. And someone said, oh yeah, you have a background in violence against women, even though I had not been in the family violence and rape unit. You can figure these out. Okay, what are they? And those 28 files represented 28 women who had multiple convictions for the crime of prostitution. Prostitution is a crime in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I'll get to that in a minute. But these 28 files represented women that the criminal justice system was significantly failing. What do we do through the criminal justice system? It's rehabilitation for those people who have convictions. It's giving them the skill sets they need to stop choosing, if it's a choice, to engage in whatever crime it is that they're doing. And in Pennsylvania, our crime of prostitution recidivizes. And what that means is the more times you are convicted, the greater the punishment that you can receive. So we recidivize from the lowest level misdemeanor to the highest level misdemeanor in a matter of 4 convictions. So the highest level misdemeanor, an M1 here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, carries a statutory maximum of 5 years in prison. So these women were facing state time, being sent to state prison for something when I was a baby DA and in the MC courtrooms thought, why are we prosecuting these cases? What are we doing? These women, it was just sort of intuitive in me, like, why are we wasting our resources on this? What's happening to them on the streets is way worse than any criminal justice punishment could give. And so when these 28 files landed on my desk, they said, yeah, they were trying to figure out how to stop this revolving door, meaning arrest, incarceration, probation, not reporting, drug abuse, just round and round and round. Figure it out, Shea. Okay, sure, I'll figure it out. And we formalized what is now the nationally known problem-solving court project on. I'm proud of that, and I'm also hopeful that we won't need a project on court anymore. And when I tell you that these women, some of these women that I've met since 2010, because I continue to sit on the oversight committee since I left the DA's office 5 years ago, we're talking 54 convictions. 36 convictions. One woman had 68 convictions and had been to 1C3 times. Why do we have recidivist penalties on our books? Why do we do this? As a deterrent. We make penalties harsher to deter people from committing crimes. It's the whole purpose of them. So how is that working out for these women? Clearly, it wasn't a deterrent. So while I was in this court, it was really cool to be in a diversion program. It was a really different way to be a prosecutor. I could, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. What happens in a problem-solving court stays in that problem-solving court. And as the prosecutor, you're now part of the team. You're not engaged in, the ethical violations that you can get in trouble for talking to someone who's represented by counsel. You're now part of the team. And I was really engaged, and I would listen to the women, and sometimes they would call me and I was allowed to talk to them. And I loved listening to them. I'm a bit of a girly girl. I like anything sparkly. If I could dip myself in glitter and walk out of the house every day, that would be a good day. And these women would bring lip glosses and put them on me, and I would bring nail polish, and we would sit in the rows, and Judge Nyfield, who I adore, would be like, Shea, can you come do your job? Right, in court, we're in court. But I was really engaged. I wanted them to succeed. I wanted them to do well. And many, many of them did. So I was listening to these women, and I kept hearing about this man, Bishop. Okay, who is Bishop? Who is he? I couldn't figure out what his name was. Nobody knew what his real name was, but he had a bottom, and he had girls in his stable, and when his individuals in the stable would get locked up, he would put money on their books in prison. And I just couldn't figure out who he was. Ran all sorts of queries trying to figure out what this dude's name was. And I was sitting in one of my coworkers' office, and she was on the family violence floor. She was a rape prosecutor her whole career. 2 special victims unit detectives walked past, and one of them did a double take and said, hey, Shea, your name just came across my desk. What is this Project Dawn Court thing? I have to look into something. And I explained the court to him. And I said, what I would really like to know is who this Bishop character is. And he was like, that's easy, that's Martin August. I was like, oh, okay. And I don't know if all of you remember the case of the serial killer in the Kensington section of Philadelphia, the Kensington Strangler. He was a sex buyer. And this was all kind of happening at the same time. He was a serial killer who was a sex buyer, and he was preying upon women and strangling them to death because they, again, are the most vulnerable, the most marginalized, and the people who no one looks for. And I thought, oh my, is he the strangler? And he was like, no, we found a body. We thought it was another victim of the strangler, but it was a woman that Bishop dumped. Her name is Jamie Lynn Cleary. Have you ever heard the saying, prostitution is a victimless crime? Tell that to Jamie Lynn's stepmom and dad. Tell that to Jamie Lynn's 5 siblings. And you want to know what Martin August was charged with? Abuse of corpse. Because Jamie's cause of death was a heroin overdose. And instead of calling 911 while she overdosed in his bed, or even taking her to a hospital and pushing her through the doors, he let her die. I think that's a homicide. But then he wrapped her body in a blanket and threw her out with the trash. Do you want to know what the grading of abusive corpses in Pennsylvania? A misdemeanor of the 2nd degree. It carries a statutory max of 2 years in jail. Never again do I want there to be another Jamie Lynn. Never. Not ever. So, I tried my darndest from inside that DA's office to get people to pay attention to me. We have pimps in this city. It's called human trafficking. Yeah, Shea, whatever. Shea, you need to stop running around with the FBI and stop giving them information. Thank you for your enthusiasm. Sex trafficking is not a pervasive problem in Philadelphia. So, I was 40 years old, and I have a license to practice law, and a mouth on me, and a very wonderful husband who said, all right, babe, go for it. So I quit my job. And I spent 13 months building what is now the CSE Institute of Villanova Law to effectuate change so no one else's stepmom has to give a Shea Rhodes permission to tell her story. Jamie Lynn was a kid who grew up in Delaware County. Her parents got divorced. She went back and forth. She met a guy who sold her the dream. And that dream came with a price tag of the heroin addiction. And Jamie Lynn was thrown out with the trash. So what is human trafficking, you guys? It is a crime. It is the illegal trade of human beings, and we're talking about commercial sex. It is a crime under both state and federal laws, and right after I left the DA's office, I began advocating for what is now Act 105, Pennsylvania's comprehensive human trafficking law. It's not perfect. I've been repeatedly telling the legislature where they need to make changes. If you've read my report, you know this. Again, I have a mouth. It's a crime. At the federal level, it has been a crime since the year 2000. It's been amended quite a bit. It was amended in 2015 because Congress recognized that sex trafficking is a demand-driven industry. So they added some acts into the federal crime, including solicits, patronizes, and advertises, so that when it is appropriate, the demand can be prosecuted as traffickers, especially if they're buying sex from kids. And our law is to do three things. It's for prosecution purposes, to prevent it, for all of you coming and listening and just learning a little bit, public awareness, and then protections for our victims, including a civil remedy, including the ability for lawyers to assist survivors in clearing their records. But that's our definition right there. What is commercial sexual exploitation? How does it look in the world? It looks like prostitution. It looks like massage parlors and brothels, sex tourism, and the exploitation of our kids. The law needs to be used for every reason that we advocated for it. It criminalizes a lot of activities, not just the pimps. It criminalizes the sex buyers, because let's be very clear, traffickers are in the business to make money. The commodity they sell is a human being, but they would go out of business if someone wasn't buying it. We can put pimps in jail all day, every day, but there's going to be trafficking and commercial sex, and they go hand in hand in our communities because there is a market to buy it. We also need to target the industries that allow it to happen in our communities, whether that be the strip clubs, the brothels, the massage parlors, and the hotels that should basically just have flashing signs out front. Pimps are us. So Buying and selling sex, I talked to you guys, and I don't want to go too all law heavy. It is my wheelhouse, but prostitution in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is in one section of the Crimes Code. It's called prostitution-related offenses. Real quick, A, that's selling sex. B, promoting prostitution. You read that real clearly, when you get in there, that's pimping. Pimping. That's pimping kids. That's B.1. A, prostitution, B and B.1 are pimping. How about we get to D, living off prostitutes. Who lives off prostitutes? I don't know, pimps, traffickers, and then E, buying sex. It's the last section. It also carries recidivist penalties, just like selling sex. So the last time I called the Department of Corrections, which was a couple summers ago, I asked, how many people are currently incarcerated in state prison for A, selling sex? It was almost 140. Okay, so how many are in there for E, buying sex? Anybody want to guess? Anybody want to guess how many were in the county jails? Gender-based inequality, anyone? How about in addition to prostitution being a victimless crime, how about it's the oldest profession? How about the oldest oppression? People aren't entitled to commodify someone else's body. So here's what it looks like in Pennsylvania, and I'm on a mission. I am on a mission to make sure that sex buyers are targeted by law enforcement and prosecutors and not the prostituted people. 3 years in a row, this is what our numbers look like. 80% of the arrests are for prostitution or selling or being sold for sex, and about 20% throughout the Commonwealth are for buying. Again, gender-based inequality, anyone? Those are the numbers for selling and buying. So in Lehigh County, we had 39 arrests in the year 2016 for prostitution. How many did we have for buying sex? Is human trafficking happening here in the Lehigh Valley? Yeah. When Act 105 went into effect, it took a long time to build these cases. It took a long time to get prosecutors to realize we had a new crime in our crimes code. And the 2 first jury trials and convictions happened right here in the Lehigh Valley. Rob Shope is an awesome prosecutor, and he's doing really good work. I don't think that office is doing enough, because again, we can lock up traffickers all day, every day, and sex trafficking is happening in the Lehigh Valley because there are people here in this community that are buying sex. This is a federal trafficking case. Trafficker was right from here, Easton, Pennsylvania. I have a personal connection to this case because these 2 traffickers, King and Blount, brutalized their victims, deliberately addicted them to heroin. Again, ask yourselves, if a pimp is selling heroin-addicted women and using that addiction to keep them compliant, that means he's taking them, or she is taking them in and out of dope sickness. Who is buying sex from dope sick people? Who? It's happening, not just here, in the whole Commonwealth and nationally. But sex buyers aren't looking at the people they're buying sex from as people. They're looking at them as a mechanism. These are human beings. They deserve our dignity, their dignity, and our respect. They deserve kindness, an opportunity to be safe, an opportunity to heal. And my mission is to pop sex buying out of the prostitution and related offenses and create its own crime, which is listed in the Crimes Against the Persons statute, and we're just gonna call it what it is, sexually exploiting another person. Pimping and all that other stuff needs to just be moved over into the human trafficking section of the Crimes Code. As lesser included offenses, that's fine. But we need to call buying sex what it is. It's buying sex and it's exploiting other people. And my personal connection to this is I have a kitty cat that I love more than anything. I don't have a kid. I can keep a cat alive. And Petey Boy is my world and my husband's world. And we took Petey after Anna did not survive. Because the demons that these men created in her, she couldn't beat. And she went back to heroin. And we have a fentanyl problem. And she died. And I am reminded every day why I get up, why I talk, why I try to make change at 4 a.m. when his whiskers tickle my face because he's hungry. That's why I get up all day, every day, and do this. What can you do? You can learn the indicators. You can help identify a victim. You can get involved with your local coalition. I feel like I'm an honorary member of VAST. I'm not lying to you when I tell you that the Valley Against Sex Trafficking is the best coalition in this state. And I know because I travel it up, down, and sideways all the time. You can organize and host a fundraiser. Donate the money or other needed supplies. You can just organize an awareness-raising event. You can post the hotline number on your social media. You can pay attention to the words that you choose to use. You hear kids talk about pimpin'. Pimpin' isn't cool, people. And when the teenagers in our life are calling each other slut and hoe, they need to be told no. These words have connotations of violence and horrifying situations. We can call out the media for saying things in their headlines like child prostitute, because there's no such thing as a child prostitute. She's a victim of rape and trafficking. You can talk to your kids. You can encourage your schools to talk to all of the kids. You can advocate for legislative changes. And you can create political will in your community with just your voices to change the status quo of the way things are looked at, policed, and prosecuted right here in the Lehigh Valley. You all are constituents here. You all have the ability to ask your elected officials to make changes, to do things differently. Because what's working out right now is not enough. If you suspect human trafficking, report it. Call 911. Call the hotline. Engage with national resources and some statewide resources. And I can tell you all, if you really want to advocate, we do have an advocacy day coming up on Tuesday in Harrisburg to advocate for Senate Bill 554, which I have written twice. Because right now in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, a child can be arrested and charged with the crime of prostitution. It is also in our Child Protective Services law as child abuse. Does that make sense to anyone in this room? It's either child abuse or a crime. And I suggest that it's a crime being committed to that child, not by that child. So if you want to advocate, you can hit the ground running with us on Tuesday. We're having a press conference at 9:30 in the morning in the Rotunda. All of you have a voice. You have the ability to effectuate change. And all it takes is one person. And I hope that all of you will engage so that no more Jamie Lynn's parents have to give someone permission to tell a story. She's a person who was loved. Thanks.